The studio lights dimmed, and the crowd's chatter faded into an expectant hush as a thin, nervous boy stepped onto the massive stage of the world's biggest talent show, gripping the microphone as though it were the only thing keeping him from falling apart. His name was Ethan Reyes, a 15-year-old from a small Midwestern town who had never stood before such a crowd, his trembling hands betraying both fear and hope, his faded sneakers scuffing the floor as he walked toward destiny. The judges, three icons of the music industry, known for their sharp criticism and unflinching honesty, looked at him with mild curiosity, expecting yet another forgettable audition from a dreamer too young to know how hard life could be. But something in Ethan's eyes, a quiet resilience, a depth far beyond his years, made them pause. "Tell us a bit about yourself," one of the judges said kindly, leaning forward, and Ethan swallowed hard before replying in a low, steady voice, "I'm from Millwood, Indiana. I used to sing for my mom every night before she got sick." The crowd softened, and for a moment, the vast auditorium felt small, intimate, like a living room filled with empathy and silence. He continued, voice breaking, "She passed away last year, but she always told me that no matter what, if I sang from my soul, people would feel her love through my voice." The audience shifted, tears already glistening in a few eyes, while the judges' expressions grew serious. The soft piano intro of Hallelujah began to play, and when Ethan opened his mouth, the world seemed to stop moving. His voice was raw, not perfect, not trained, but powerful in the way only truth could be. Every note carried pain, memory, and something more. He wasn't just singing words, he was letting out years of quiet grief, of nights spent sitting by a hospital bed humming lullabies, of mornings when the house felt too quiet to breathe. His tone soared, trembling but unwavering, the kind of sound that reached into people's chests and reminded them of everything they'd lost and everything they still had. The first judge covered her mouth, trying to hold back tears, while the second leaned forward, transfixed, his usual smirk gone. Ethan's voice cracked mid-song, and for a second he faltered, but then, as though summoned from somewhere unseen, the crowd began to softly hum along, a wave of compassion lifting him higher. He looked up, tears streaming down his cheeks, and sang the final verse with a strength that didn't belong to a child but to someone who had lived through darkness and chosen to keep shining anyway. The last note hung in the air, fragile and eternal, and when it faded, the silence that followed was deafening. Then, as if the entire room remembered how to breathe at once, the audience exploded into applause. People rose to their feet, clapping, crying, shouting his name. The judges stood too, wiping tears, one of them visibly shaking as she pressed the golden buzzer that sent glitter raining down from the ceiling. Ethan dropped to his knees, overcome, covering his face as gold confetti mixed with tears, his body trembling under the weight of everything that moment meant, not just the victory, but the feeling that maybe, just maybe, his mother had been right there beside him. As the crowd continued cheering, the host rushed on stage, helping him up, whispering something like, "You did it, kid," while the judges came forward, their faces soft with emotion. "That," said the first judge, voice thick, "wasn't just singing, that was healing." The second added quietly, "You reminded us why music matters, it's not about fame, it's about connection." And the third, who had been silent all this time, simply nodded and said, "Your mom would be so proud." Ethan's lips trembled, he looked up toward the bright lights, whispering, "I hope she heard me." Backstage, the camera crew followed him as he hugged his little sister, Lily, a frail 9-year-old in a wheelchair who had been watching from the sidelines, her eyes shining brighter than the gold confetti still clinging to his hair. "Mom would have loved that," she said softly, and Ethan smiled through tears. "I sang it for both of you." Their story was already going viral online, clips of his performance spreading across the internet like wildfire, captioned "The boy who made the world cry." Comments poured in from strangers, soldiers saying they listened to his song in the dark, nurses saying his voice reminded them why they cared, parents saying they hugged their kids tighter that night. A week later, Ethan was invited back to perform at a charity gala for children's hospitals across the country, and though he was nervous again, this time he walked onto that stage with a quiet confidence, the kind born from pain turned into purpose. He dedicated the song to all the parents watching over their children from heaven and sang with even more soul than before. Halfway through the performance, the cameras cut to people in the audience, cancer survivors, widows, foster kids, all of them crying, smiling, singing along. When he finished, the room was filled with light applause and the kind of silence that means hearts have been touched beyond words. Later, a producer approached him backstage with tears still on her face, saying, "Ethan, your voice has raised enough donations tonight to build an entire new pediatric wing. You've changed lives." Ethan looked stunned. He had never imagined that a voice that once sang only in a small bedroom could build something so big, could heal more than his own broken heart. That night, he visited the hospital his mother once stayed in and sang quietly in the hallway, his voice echoing through the sterile walls. Nurses stopped to listen, patients peeked from their doors, and somewhere, deep inside, he felt her presence again, not in the form of grief this time, but peace. As months passed, Ethan's fame grew, but he stayed the same humble boy from Millwood, the one who still visited kids' wards to sing, who wrote songs about hope and healing instead of money and fame. Reporters tried to call him the miracle voice, but he always corrected them gently, saying, the real miracle was all the people who listened with their hearts. On the night of the finals, when he stood again on that massive stage with the whole world watching, he chose a song he'd written himself titled Home Is Where You Hear Love. It was soft, pure, and filled with everything he had learned about loss, kindness, and the invisible threads that connect us all. By the last chorus, the crowd was on its feet again, and this time, the tears weren't just for him, they were for every moment people had been brave enough to keep loving despite their pain. When the lights dimmed and the applause thundered, Ethan didn't think of fame, trophies, or headlines. He thought of his mother humming in the kitchen, of his sister's laugh, of strangers who had written to say his song helped them through the night. The boy who once sang to heal one heart had ended up healing thousands. And as he walked off the stage, holding his sister's hand, he whispered, "We did it, Mom," smiling through tears as confetti fell once more. The world would remember that performance as the night judges couldn't hold back tears, but for Ethan, it would always be the night he finally understood his mother's words, "When you sing with your soul, love never dies."